Finally updating my post on one of my favorite fruits of all time with an instructional video on how to extract the juice. This is Highbush cranberries, specifically how to make Highbush cranberry juice and what to do with it. The most important thing to know about this plant is that there's a number of different species here. So Viburnum opulus is the European species that is, spreading across North America. There's lots of it where I live. It tastes like bitter, wet dog. The Russians and Eastern Europeans seem to like it. I don't know why. Viburnum trilobum is a native species. That one tastes like a nice tart cranberry. You can taste the two to tell the difference. One is bad, one tastes good. And there's also a way that you can look at the glands on the leaves, but if the fruit is available on the plant, you can just try it out. But it's so hard to differentiate the species at a glance that a lot of nurseries and even the DNR make the mistake of mislabeling the plants. I actually bought one that was labeled trilobum and it turned out to be opulus. This is the finished product you're going to get. Highbush cranberry juice. It's delicious. Important thing to know about this is that the juice is always processed cold because if the seeds are in it, they're going to make it very bitter and it will ruin it. So the first method, this is the Sam Thayer method, is mashing and straining. So this is very useful for when you have large amounts. You can see that these fruit are still attached to the racemes. And what we're going to do is take the fruit and we just mash it up. So this is super similar to processing fruit like grapes, where all we want is a juice. We're going to add some water to get things moving and then just mash it up as best as we can. I have another video where I did this with a 5-gallon bucket. You can see it's getting hard to kind of crush them up. It's a little imprecise, so I started using my hands. More than one way to do this, and you do not have to get this messy. This is actually not my preferred way to process the fruit, so I was going a little bit fast. You get the idea. Once the fruit is mashed up, we're going to put it into a china cap or a strainer. You could use a food mill. And then I'm just going to roll around my kind of mortar and pestle here for straining tomatoes, pressing it against the side, and it's going to extract a juice. Like I said, there's lots of different ways that you can do this, but this is good for very large amounts because you're leaving the fruit attached to the racemes. And I'm going to take the extra fruit. Some are still not broken up, so I'm going to just really squeeze them and wring them out in cheesecloth to get as much as I possibly can. Then we're going to take the juice and we'll give it another strain just to get, I can see a rogue seed in there. Just one final pass through the strainer, and there we go. And you should get this, reasonably thick, tart cranberry juice. Now you can take the leftover fruit that you squeezed in cheesecloth, you can add water to that and mix it around again. Not a lot of water, just enough to kind of get things moving. And then you can get a second wash that is usually like a few cups if I'm doing like 5 or 10 pounds. Next method is my method. This is the pureeing and straining food processor method. So I noticed that there's a lot of flesh clinging to the seeds, and it was kind of hard to break them up. As you saw, the trade-off here, this gives you a thicker, superior finished product, depending on what you want to do with it. The trade-off is that you will be picking the fruit off of the racemes. So this is good for people that are picking smaller amounts, like if you only have a couple pounds, because this is going to give you something that's nice and thick, kind of right off the bat. Have family and friends help you pick the berries. It'll go a lot faster. Give them a quick little rinse, just to take off any particles or dust, especially if they're like on the side of an old country road and there could be dust coming up. Then we just put them in the food processor. And the magic here is that the blades are not strong enough to break up the skin or the seeds, but it is strong enough to remove that puree that clings to the seed itself. And I add a little bit of water just to get things moving, but not nearly as much as when I make the big batch mashed Highbush cranberry juice. Same method of putting it through the china cap or a food mill, but look at the consistency of this when we use the food processor. Boom! Super thick. That is a coulis, like a thick fruit puree as opposed to a juice. And it is my preference because it takes less time to cook. You can see the two products side by side. Sam Thayer's, I need to say Sam Thayer's juice is typically much thicker than mine. He's also been doing it for so many more years. Now, how to make a simple Highbush cranberry sauce. You need like 2 ingredients, a little bit of maple syrup or a touch of sweetener, and Highbush cranberry juice or puree. Now, to make it so we are not adding excess water, we're going to cook the maple syrup. This is about a 1/4 cup for 2.5 cups of puree, roughly. We're going to cook that down until it gets nice and bubbly. That's going to remove some water. Then we're just going to add the Highbush cranberry juice or puree. And then eventually we cook it down and it's going to get thick like that, thick like applesauce. That's what you want, like a super tart cranberry puree. Storing and freezing, you can store the juice, you can store the finished cooked down puree, just chuck it in the freezer, it's going to be fine. So easy to store. General cooking. This is great for savory stuff and sweet stuff. So here's with a roasted goose with butternuts and oyster mushroom wild rice. That was fantastic. You can also put it on sweet stuff. So I took the same puree and I just put it over vanilla ice cream with warm strawberries. So good anywhere you'd like a tart red cranberry flavor. You can also make like a mock cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving. There is a recipe for that on my website. Basically the same thing with a couple spices tossed in. You can also take the juice and make a terrific, really nice clear jelly if you strain the juice through cheesecloth. I add some ginger to mine or chopped up habanero. You can also add it to applesauce, and that is really good. Adds a nice tart flavor and a beautiful color to applesauce or apple butter. And then in Europe, they make liqueurs. You can take some of the fruit and pour vodka or brandy over it. Makes a nice liqueur, sweeten it with some maple syrup. Then I also make a hot sauce out of it with fermented Fresno peppers. All the recipes here will be linked in the video description, and there's more in the post on my website. If you work with Highbush cranberries, leave a comment, share how you like to make them. I love hearing your suggestions, but more info in the post on my website, links at the top of the video description. Thanks for watching.